I wrote a book and got published. Yeah. Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Rusty Brown Photography. I'm Rusty. So glad you guys are here. Today I'm talking about a book, right? I wrote a book. I got published. An amazing accomplishment. I will tell you why. I'm going to tell you what the book was about. I'm going to tell you what I used to put the book together, who the publisher was, how much it costs, all of the above. So let's just dive right in, right? Again, got my coach's clipboard so I don't forget any key points here. Why did I write a book? So 10 years ago, in 2014, Dee and I were on vacation in Spain, and they had a term there called familia, and what I witnessed firsthand was their definition of family was different than anything I had ever seen. Neighborhoods were families. You understand? It was the same for a blood relative as it was for someone that grew up, as best friends with someone. They embraced familia, and they weren't as wrapped up or concerned about the bloodline as much as they were about taking care of one another. And I believe that all of us make our own families as we get older, as we age. Yes, we all have the families that we're born into. That goes without saying. But as you get older and as you've progress through life from a child to an adult, there'll be different people in your life that impact it in such a way that your life wouldn't be the same without them. And what I wanted to do was take that type of familia that I saw in Spain and define it for myself. So to that end, I have family members, blood family, who are near and dear to me. But I also have family members by blood that I don't see often, that I don't associate with a lot. Doesn't mean that I don't love them. I do. They're family. Conversely, there are people in my life that are non-blood that I grew up with, that I associate with, that help shape who I am, and I consider them family. So what my definition of La Familia means is that my family is unique to me specifically. It contains blood relatives, it contains folks that are not blood relatives, and it doesn't matter to me. The definition of familia for me is simply someone that has had such an impact on my life, someone that I care for deeply, and it could be from childhood. It could be someone in my life today who's had an impact on me. And the challenge that I had was how to write that, how to capture that. Again, that was 2014, so I kind of had it in the back of my mind for a number of years. And then at one point, I thought about, what if I use my photography to help me with this book? So the book that I wrote, a lot of pictures in it, a lot of photographs, but I don't consider it a photo book. To me, a photo book is, a photo book, something like, Annie Leibovitz, which is a book of prized photographs that she's taking. For me, the primary purpose was to write the book. The secondary was how was I going to capture it. And for me, marrying up the need to write about some people and to capture it via photographs was important to me. So that's what I set out to do. Obstacles. There were some obstacles. How to write it, how to put it all together, and how to do it in such a way that it would hit the mark in terms of what I wanted it to be. One of the biggest challenges I had was syncing up with the people that I wanted to put in the book. So to give you an idea, and you'll see this in just a sec, the layout of my book is pretty simple. On one page, I have a write-up. No more than one page. It could be a paragraph, it could be a couple sentences, it could be a full page. It varies from individual to individual. On the corresponding page, I have an image that I took of them. So one of the things to consider if you're going to take on such a book is to plan it out, plan your layout so that you can do the best job in advance, and it's going to really help you down the road. For me, what that meant was everyone that I was going to take a picture of, take a photograph of, it was going to be in the portrait mode, because I knew in my mind that the book, when it opened up, was going to have, you know, writing on the one side, photo on the other side. Now, this does not mean that the form of book that I chose to use, the template, that you can't have landscape. I've got plenty of those in there, but the lion's share of my images were going to be portraits. The other obstacle, like I was saying, was catching up with people. I had to find a couple of kids. I had to find a couple of people that I grew up with when we were kids. We were best friends. We were inseparable back then. Obviously, we're all adults at this point. I had to find those guys and take their picture. I traveled around a lot. It took me 2 years to complete the book, and in large part it was because I had to get on someone else's schedule. I didn't want to bother them, but it was important to me to take the image that was going to go into the book. In some cases, it meant driving to other states. Oftentimes, Dee would go with me just so I'd have somebody to ride with when I would go to get these shots. So I would basically contact the person, explain to them what I was doing, make arrangements to get with them on their time. I would come, take the shots. It was very quick. After I took the shots, I would usually always take them out for a meal, lunch, dinner, or something like that to thank them, and then over the meal explain to them what La Familia meant to me. The platform, what type of product to do. So I was looking at a zine and I was looking at books. And for those of you who don't know what a zine is, it's like a PDF but better. Not quite a paperback book, but not just a bunch of PDFs that are printed. A lot of folks use those, travel photographers, etc. They go out, they travel, they put a zine together, and they sell them. So once I knew I wanted to do a book, then from there it was, okay, what type? And I'll go through that, whether you want it paperback, hardback, that type of thing. Ultimately, I went with hardback. The execution was important, and this is something where the particular publishing company that I use, it was called Blurb, and I'll introduce you to them, were very good in helping me narrow down a lot of the challenges. And so in terms of the execution, I didn't write and take photos at the same time. It was very important to me to go out and get the pictures. So I probably spent 18 months of the 2 years getting on people's calendars, going and just getting the photographs. And what I would do basically was I would take the camera, and it was always, mostly an outdoor shot. I would shoot them with an 85mm prime. I would shoot them with the 135mm prime, and I would shoot them on the 70-200. And in some cases, I also took my APS-C camera and would shoot with an 85 on that as well, because I wanted to get different perspectives. So I would take those shots, and whenever I got back here, I would put them on the computer, and whichever one I thought looked the best from those different focal lengths would be the one that would go into the book. So if you can imagine, I just went through that process for a year and a half, going and taking various pictures of all the people that I wanted to get into the book. Once I had all the pictures, then I came back here, and the way I would do it is I would put one picture up on one of the screens of that subject, and only that picture, and then I would write about them, whatever I felt, why that person was important to me, and then I would go through that process for everyone in the book. So that's kind of how I got to where I was with it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce you to the publishing company that I use and the tools that they have to help put the book together. All right. So this is the site that I use, right? It's called blurb.com. You just come here, you can create a free account, download the design tools, create your book, and you just start creating. And if you scroll down, you can see the different types of books: lay flats, hard covers, soft covers. You can go down a little further and you'll see types of paper, which is a huge decision that you have to make in this process. And then you can use different tools. I chose Bookwrite, but you can also use Lightroom, Photoshop, or Adobe InDesign. They have a great section, tons of FAQs from what is a photo book, what's the difference between a lay flat and others, how much does the book cost, what size should the book be, should I order a proof copy, and things of that nature. So once you get into to the application itself, right, from Blurb, they have a template that helps you design your book. Remember, this isn't just a photo book for me. There's a lot of writing. So their tool called BookWrite was a super help. Let's take a look at that. If you go up to the left up here, you can see this is how you add photos. You can add them from your computer or from the cloud. And once you load them up, these files can be anywhere up to 75 megapixels. So they take some pretty big files, JPEGs or PNGs, right? Once you get your pictures loaded, they'll all load across the top of the screen. As you can see here, every image that you've loaded will go on the top. When you start writing, you'll see that they're boundary borders. They're actually BookWrite borders that keep you inside of the frame so your words don't bleed out. And like I told you before, I was doing a one-page write-up on everyone. So here on the left, I would write about them. And on the bottom, I would put the EXIF data for every picture, right? So the file name, ISO, what lens I used, f-stop, shutter speed. And then on the opposite side would be the portrait. And that also has a border too that you can stay within. Now you see these similar backdrops. That's because whenever I photograph someone, I ask them to not wear a green shirt because I knew wherever I met them at, I was going to meet them outside and put them between whatever the closest tree line was and then me. That way I could get similar backdrops for all these different folks because we had trees with them. As I talked about before, not everything had to be portrait. You can see here you can do some freestyling work. You can get some landscapes in. You can double them up like I've done here. Any picture that I didn't take, I would give a credit to the person that took those pictures, right? The other point to note too is that you get to do your cover, like you look up here on the top left, front cover, your back cover has the same text flow and spacing constraints, and I put some EXIF data on there. And if you look here, there's a no fooling ISBN, and that's really, really important. So I'm going to show you what the ISBN does, but that is the way that you can now track my book. You can track any book, any book, whatever. This one for Sir Patrick Stewart. Across the bottom of every book, you'll see the ISBN, which means that you can look up this number. And when you do, you look up this particular number, making it so for Sir Patrick Stewart would come up. Well, when you go through a formal publishing company, you too can get an ISBN, and I did for Familia. One of the most important things about publishing your own book is how much does it cost. It's expensive. I think it's expensive, but it depends on what your motivation is, what type of book you're writing, and why. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the Blurb pricing calculator to show you exactly how your book gets priced based on a number of different factors, right? So let's take a look at that. Pricing calculator here. So as you can see, you choose your project. Is it a book? Is it a magazine, PDF, whatever? I chose a book. Next up, you pick your paper and the book size. And so once you get that, you can see it standardizes on 20 pages in a quantity of 1. I went with standard portrait, 8x10, premium luster paper. And as you can see here, that comes up to $46 for a 20-page book in 1 copy. But I ended up with 114 pages in my book. That means that right now that price is out at $88. And if you pick a different type of paper like Mohawk, that same book would cost $104. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you can price your book. One important note for me is that it was never my intention to sell the book. I was writing the book as a personal project that meant a lot to me. Turns out I have sold the book and sold several copies, which is it was quite humbling because that was never my intent. When I do sell the book, and I'll show how that takes place, I don't do it for a profit, right? I'm selling now at whatever the cost is from the publisher to reprint the book and deliver it to someone who wants it. So that's something to consider when you decide, the type of book you're going to make. Is it going to be one that you want to sell? Because I could easily advertise it on Amazon. I'll show you where it is advertised before I wrap up the video, right? So once you get done with that, you can take a preview right there at the site to see what your book looks like, and it's something like this. When you go to your page, right, and you select the preview option right there in the middle, and Once you do that, it's going to start walking you through. It puts your book up. This is actually the cover, and you can just click on the pages at the top, and you can scroll through to take a good look at what you have to see if it's fitting the way you want it to fit, if it looks good. This is a really good thing to do that Blurb offers, so that you get a better idea of what your finished product is going to look like after so many months, or in my case, years of putting it together. This is your final step. As you can see, I have words on one side, the EXIF data at the bottom of that page, and the portraits that I took of different people who are near and dear to me in the book. And in some cases, I would throw other images up in there, things that help tell the story. But that's part of what I was doing, was actually telling a story and using, so many wonderful people that are close to me to tell the story. So as you go through your preview, you can do this too, to take a look and see if it's meeting. And if it's not, you can always, go back, start over, and pick it up once again from wherever the challenges are. This is a super important tool that I went through a lot, because when you get to the point that you're finishing up your preview, it's really your last step before, hitting that go button. And, before you hit that go button, there are a couple things that you really want to make sure that you're taking care of, obviously because of how much your book is going to cost you, right? So in addition to doing the preview that you can do via Blurb and Bookright, one of the recommendations that they had, which I did take advantage of, was order a proof copy. This is my book, right? This is it. This one is not open, but what I did before they came in, I ordered a proof copy so that you could actually have a physical book that says, okay, you get it, you look at it, if everything's fine, you go back to the publisher, you tell them how many you want. And yes, once the proof book came, I found some things that I had to change. First and foremost, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but the foreword that was done here by my good friend Marquise Gatson, on this version of it, his name was split, and you really don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying, where it says first name and then last name's on a different line. So that's one of the things I was able to change, so that in the final version, it's got his entire name, Marquise Gatson, right there at the bottom. And that's something that no matter how many times I went through, doing how many times I did the preview, I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it until I had the actual book in hand. Once you've gone through that process and you're going to give Blurb the okay, it's a little, it can be a little nerve-wracking, because again, at $88 per, I will say this, I did get a bulk discount, which they will offer to you based on how many you're going to get. You tell them to go with it, and then they ship. And so your boxes come, which was it was a scary day and a happy day at the same time, because it's the end of the line, right? End of making that book. And went through and opened it up very heavy. The boxes were heavy. They came in multiple boxes. As you can see here, here's a couple of them. Opened those up and went through each one of them actually to make sure that everything was good to go. Obviously, if you have a mistake in your book at that point when you're ordering as many as I did, you're going to be stuck with it. But thankfully, I did not have any issues with those. Again, the type of book that this is on Blurb, it's called a photo book, but you can use that photo book template for anything you want to do. I am working on a new book this year that is going to be a photo book. Thankfully, I don't have to write anymore, so it's just going to be, and I teased this up in the last video that I did, where I was talking about the value of printing. That's what this is, right? This is permanent. This is physical. I'm a book person. Regular books, photo books, they're important to me. I'm not saying that there's not a place for online review of images, but this was so important to me to have a physical copy that I could actually give to the people that matter. I went through the process of signing each one of them to the people that were in the book, with a little personal note going to each one. And again, what they do with it is totally up to them. It was a gift from me. But again, physical media, and it matters. So the next book that I'm doing, and I'm working on it right now, we talked about it a little bit in the last video, it's called Genes. That will be a photo book. Don't know how many pages. I've been working on it for a while. So that one will probably be a little different style, maybe a lay flat, or maybe something that's more akin to landscape as opposed to, portrait mode. There are a lot of companies that do what Blurb does. This wasn't sponsored by them. I got nothing from them. You can go to YouTube and look up how to make a book, and you're going to get, if you look up 10 different ones, you may get 10 different companies. My good friend, Matt Granger, he did one, I want to say within the last year, and he was adamant that the one that he chose was better than everybody else. I did not necessarily agree with his logic that the company he used was better. I think it's really just a matter of personal preference. So I would suggest that you do your research. I can highly recommend, Blurb. I'm extremely satisfied with what they did. The hardback with the photo emblazed on the front and the back is going to cost a little bit more. They do the ones with the sleeves, like in a traditional book, I think, like this one for Al Jarreau. You can see, the type that has the sleeves on it that come out. Blurb does that too. And if you get this style, it costs less. Because of the reason for me writing the book, I wanted something, I don't want you to lose the cover. I don't want any of that. So one of the things that if you want to see a little bit more about my book, check out what I just put on the screen. That's right. I figured out how to do QR codes. How cool is that? And it was not something I could do 24 hours ago. But if you scan the QR code, it'll take you directly to the site that Blurb manages for me. It'll tell you everything about the book. All the details in the book are all right there. If you don't scan the QR code, I do have the corresponding link in the show notes so you could grab it and do a cut and paste into a web browser. That's really all I wanted to talk about today, the journey. I think once you captured something, no one can take that away from you. And the journey was longer than I thought it would be. I thought I could get it done in less than a year. It took a little over 2 years. There were times when I would go to write about someone when I had their picture on the screen, right? And I would get stuck, not necessarily at a loss for words, but it's a very emotional process to write about this, to write about people in the way, I should say, that I wrote about them, because I wasn't mincing any words. I really wanted to speak on each person whose picture was on my screen. And there were times when I would have to walk away from it because the bond was so tight, or I know some of the things that me and that person went through, and I just wasn't prepared to write about it. So I would always put it down, come back at a later time to finish it off. So again, I would highly recommend it if it's something you thought about, whether you're going to just do a photo book or capture something. I told everyone that I gave this to, this is not a autobiography. It isn't. It's La Familia. It's a book about, my family. And in my family, you can be a blood relative. You cannot be a blood relative. You can be someone from my childhood. You can be someone from when I was in the military. I don't have any rules with all that. And by telling people what they mean to me, it's just opened up. It opened up the floodgates, I should say, of emotions that I just really wasn't prepared for. So for me personally, extremely therapeutic, and I'm glad I did that. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. I hope that you found some information here that could help you along your journey. Stay tuned. Later in the year, I'm going to release the book on genes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Until then, take care. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye now.